Good afternoon, children. This is Mrs. Preeti Agarwal from PGT Biology from Army Public School, Noida. I'm here to take you on a roller coaster ride through the chapter Improvement of Food Resources. Children, living organisms require food which provides us with carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. These are required for body development, growth, and health. We obtain our food from agriculture and animal husbandry. India is a vast country with a large population. It keeps increasing. At present, it is over 1 billion. It is our responsibility to provide food security to our population. But there are some challenges that we face. These are that there is an ever diminishing agricultural field per capita. The water resources are depleting, so irrigation becomes a problem, and expanding abiotic and biotic stresses. And of course, last but not the least, an ever increasing population. So how do we increase the production? We can do that by using technology. Technology use is good, but we must take care of the environment. We should not degrade our environment. So therefore, there is a requirement of sustainable practices in agriculture and animal husbandry. We have to animal husbandry, and so we need to make production of the crop and livestock efficient, and this can be done in the following manner. So children, let us see how we can improve the production efficiency of crop and animals or livestock. So today we are going to start with the improvement in food resources, chapter 15 from class 9 science. We've already discussed the need for increasing food production. Okay, we get our food from crops and animal husbandry. We get carbohydrates from wheat, rice, maize, millets, and sorghum. We get proteins from grams, pea, black gram, green gram, lentil, and pigeon pea. We get fats from soya bean, groundnuts, sesame, castor, sunflower, linseed, and mustard. We get vitamins and minerals from fruits, vegetables, and spices. And fodder crops are also very important, like berseem, Sudan grass, and oats. The crops can be grown in two seasons, the Kharif crop and the Rabi crop. The Kharif crops are grown in the rainy season from June to October, whereas the Rabi season crops are grown from November to April. The Kharif season crops which are grown from June to October are paddy, maize, pigeon pea, and the Rabi season crops which are grown from November to April are wheat, peas and mustard. Now, to improve our crop production, we must practice these three things. One is the crop variety improvement by different methods, crop production improvement and crop protection management. So let us see what comes under crop variety improvement and how would we improve the variety of the plants. By two processes, that is hybridization and genetic manipulation. Now, what is crop production improvement? Crop production improvement means that how would you increase the produce of the plant, and that could be by providing the plants with proper nutrients in the form of manures and fertilizers, or organic farming, and give water supply to the plant properly, that's called as irrigation, and following the cropping patterns. Crop protection management. We need to protect our plants, otherwise the yield will go down. We need to develop plants which are pest and insect resistant and disease resistant. If they are not, then we must control the insect pest. Disease, we must control that. We must also control the weeds that take away the nutrients of the crop plant. And after the harvest, we need to store the grains in a scientific manner. First, children, we'll study about hybridization. This is a method by which you get better yielding plants. So in hybridization is a crossing between genetically dissimilar plants. Hybridization, we take two parents or two plants, each differing by a character. We need a plant with a desired character, maybe a high yield, and the other plant which is disease resistant. And then we get a hybrid which has both the characters of the plant. That means this hybrid will be high yielding and disease resistant too. Hybridization can be intervarietal, that means between different varieties. Interspecific, that means between different species of the same genus. Or it may be intergeneric, that means between different genera. So, hybridization can be carried out in plants in these different ways: intervarietal, interspecific, or intergeneric. The other method that can be used to have an improved variety of plant is by genetic modification. Genetic modification means it's another way of improving crop variety in which we introduce a gene to obtain the desired characteristics. This produces genetically modified crops. I'll give you an example of genetically modified crop. You must have heard of BT brinjal. In BT brinjal, they do not get infected by insect pest, because they have a gene which is called as a cry gene, which comes from a bacteria which is called as Bacillus thuringiensis, and therefore makes the plant resistant to the insect pest. And in this way, we modify the plant and obtain desired characteristics. Now, by the help of hybridization and genetic manipulation, we are going to aim to get plants which give us higher yield, to increase productivity of crop per acre, biotic and abiotic resistant plants to increase resistance of crops to biotic factors like insects, diseases, etc. and abiotic factors like drought, salinity, heat, cold, etc. So, we are going to, by hybridization or by genetic modification, we can get plants which have biotic or abiotic resistance. Then we come to the next one, that is change in maturity duration. So you know that each plant or each crop plant has a duration in which it will mature. If by hybridization or by genetic manipulation we can reduce the duration between sowing and harvesting, then the farmers can grow multiple crops during the year. And the fourth is wider adaptability. That means we can grow plants in different climatic conditions. For example, there is a sugar cane, Saccharum barberry, that was grown in northern India, and Saccharum officinarum that's grown in South India. But the officinarum, the one sugarcane grown in South India, is better because it has thicker stem and higher content of sugar. But this couldn't be grown in North India because of the climatic difference. So a hybrid was made between the two, and this hybrid could be grown in North India. So you see that hybridization is very important. You get plants with wider adaptability. The next one is desirable agronomic characters. That means characters like tallness and more branching are useful for fodder crops, and dwarfness or shortness is desirable for cereal crops. For example, in India, by M.S. Swaminathan, who was responsible also for Green Revolution, was helped in making semi-dwarf varieties of wheat, which are called as Sonalika and Kalyan Sona. So you have varieties which have come up due to hybridization of the plants. Now the next that we come to is crop production management. Now crop production management includes nutrient management, irrigation, and cropping management. So now let us see the nutrients that are acquired by the plants. The nutrients supplied to the plants are from air, water, and soil. Air provides the plant with carbon and oxygen. Children, you know that carbon and oxygen, carbon dioxide and oxygen is exchanged through the stomata of the leaves. Water gives the plant hydrogen and oxygen. You know, water molecule itself is made up of H2O, that is hydrogen and oxygen. So water provides the plant with hydrogen and oxygen. Now soil has important nutrients for the plant. These nutrients, according to the requirement by the plant, can be macronutrients or micronutrients. Macronutrients are required by the plant in larger quantities. For example, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. You know that NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, is required in large amounts by the plants which it gets from the soil. There are other nutrients which are required in very less quantities. These are called as micronutrients. Micronutrients are like iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and chlorine. So these are the nutrients which are required by the plant, and they get it from air, water and soil. If the nutrient is less in the soil, then it can be added by two ways, either adding it in the form of manure or fertilizers. Manure is prepared by the decomposition of plants and animal waste. It contains organic matter and nutrients. What are the advantages of manure? It helps to increase soil fertility. It helps in drainage and prevents waterlogging. It helps to reduce the use of fertilizers, and also it helps to recycle farm waste, and it protects the environment from chemicals. So these are the advantages. It helps to increase soil fertility. It helps in drainage and prevents waterlogging. It helps to reduce the use of fertilizers. It helps to recycle farm waste, and it protects the environment from chemicals. Now let us see what are the different types of manures. There are three types of manures: compost, vermicompost and green manure. The compost and vermicompost is prepared by the decomposition of plant and animal waste in compost pits. Compost that is prepared by using earthworms is called as vermicompost. Compost is rich in organic matter and nutrients. Now let us see how should we prepare green manure. Before sowing seeds in fields, some green plants like sunhemp, guar, etc. are mixed in the soil by ploughing. These plants turn into green manure, which makes the soil rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. This is because these plants are rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. Now we come to fertilizers. Fertilizers are chemicals that are made commercially. They supply nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and helps to increase crop yield. The advantages of fertilizers are used only in required amounts. And fertilizers are full of nutrients, so they dissolve faster, so they provide the nutrients to the plants faster than the manures. They are used to ensure good vegetative growth. For example, the plants are provided with urea as a fertilizer, which ensures the growth of leaves and branches in the plant, and it also gives rise to healthy plants. Fertilizers are a factor in higher yields of high cost farming. What does high cost farming means? A farmer that is economically well off can buy fertilizers and use it in the fields, but those who are not economically well off would use manure to add nutrients to the soil. Now let us see what are the disadvantages of the fertilizers. Excessive use of fertilizers can reduce soil fertility and also cause water pollution. Continuous use of fertilizers in an area can destroy soil fertility. So you see the comparison between the manures and fertilizers. The manure was improving soil fertility, whereas fertilizers, if continuous use of fertilizers is done, then it destroys the soil fertility, because the organic matter in the soil is not replenished. which is replenished by the manure. And microorganisms in the soil are harmed by fertilizers. Why are they harmed? Because after all, fertilizers are chemicals. There is another disadvantage of fertilizers is if there is an excessive use of fertilizers, then during the rain, it may be a runoff and it may accumulate in the adjoining ponds or lakes, which would increase the biota of the pond or lake, and as a result the oxygen supply of the pond and lake will decrease and it will result into the death of aquatic animals. Not only that, if there are certain fertilizers which may increase and also reduce soil fertility that we just studied. Now we come to organic farming. Organic farming is a method of farming using less or no amount of fertilizers, herbicides or pesticides. So children, organic farming is done which is just use no chemicals at all, whether it is to add nutrients, that is fertilizers, or to kill the weeds or the insect pest. No chemicals are used in organic farming. This method uses only organic matters like organic manures and farm waste. It uses blue-green algae in preparation of biofertilizers, and neem leaves, turmeric are used as biopesticides to store the grain. So as you see that no fertilizer or herbicide or pesticide is used. Organic farming was started by Ramesh Chand Daga in Haryana, and he brought, nowadays organic farming is what is liked by people because it uses no chemicals. Now we have to go to the next aspect of the chapter, and that is irrigation. We need to provide proper water to the plants. So the process of watering plants to ensure that crops get enough quantity of water at proper phase during growing season to increase the expected yields of any crop is called as irrigation. There are many different types, ways in which the irrigation is done by the farmers. The first one we study here is the wells. In a dug well, so the wells you can see are of two types. Either it can be a dug well or it can be a tube well. The wells, in a dug well, water is collected from bearing strata. Tube wells can tap water from the deeper strata. Water is then lifted up using pumps from these wells to water the plants. So this is how wells are used to water the plants. Another way is canal. They receive water from one or more reservoirs or from rivers. The main canal is divided into branches having further distributaries to irrigate fields. River lift system. This system is more useful in areas having insufficient or irregular canal flow as a result of inadequate reservoir release. So what is river lift system? This system is more useful in areas having insufficient or irregular canal flow as a result of inadequate reservoir release. Tanks. These are, can you see these reservoirs here, children? And these are the tanks. These are small storage reservoirs intercepting and storing the runoff of smaller catchment. Now we come to the irrigation initiatives. Rainwater harvesting. Rainwater is collected and recycled into ground by digging canals. So how is rainwater? This is a very important aspect for the water conservation these days. That is rainwater harvesting. Rainwater is collected and then recycled into ground by digging canals. Watershed management. Small check dams are built up in watershed areas to increase percolation of water into the ground and reduce flow of rainwater to prevent soil erosion. So watershed management not only helps to collect the rainwater and prevent it from being runoff, but it also helps, these catchment areas also help in recharging of the groundwater. Now we come to another aspect of crop production improvement, and that is cropping patterns. Before I teach you about cropping patterns, children, let us see a small video on cropping patterns.
A very important requirement for efficient crop production management is cropping pattern. Cropping patterns are the ways or the patterns in which crops are grown. Some different types of cropping patterns are mixed cropping, intercropping, and crop rotation. Let us now learn about these cropping patterns one by one. Mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is growing two or more crops simultaneously on the same piece of land. This reduces risk and gives some insurance against failure of one of the crops. Few combinations for mixed cropping are wheat plus gram, wheat plus mustard, groundnut plus sunflower. Intercropping. The pattern of growing two or more crops simultaneously on the same field in a definite pattern is called intercropping. A few rows of one crop alternate with a few rows of second crop. The crops are selected such that their nutrient requirements are different. This ensures maximum utilization of the nutrients supplied. Intercropping also prevents pests and diseases from spreading to all the plants belonging to one crop in a field. In this way, both the crops can give a better yield. A few examples of combinations for intercropping are soybean plus maize, finger millet or bajra plus cowpea or lobia. Crop rotation. The growing of different crops on a piece of land in a pre-planned succession is known as crop rotation. Depending upon the duration, crop rotation is done for different crop combinations. The availability of moisture and irrigation facilities decide the choice of the crop to be cultivated after one harvest. If crop rotation is done properly, then 2 or 3 crops can be grown in a year with good harvests.
Okay, children, there is a learner here who has sent a question saying there are 2 types of modes of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Well, children, I hope you know what is autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic nutrition is a type of nutrition in which the organism is able to manufacture its own food, and heterotrophic nutrition is a type of nutrition in which the organism is not able to manufacture its own food and it depends on the autotrophs for their food. Now it says, what is meant by mixotrophic nutrition? Children, mixotrophic means a plant which is following both the types of nutrition, autotrophic and heterotrophic. For example, children, Venus flytrap. Now what happens is, when the soil is deficient of nitrogen, at that time the plants do photosynthesize, but at the same time they have a heterotrophic mode of nutrition like the Venus flytrap, which traps the insects and acquires nitrogen from the body of the insects. There are many more examples, like Utricularia is also one of the examples of mixotrophic nutrition. Then another question from a learner is that there are 2 types of autotrophic modes of nutrition, phototrophic and chemotrophic. How is they different? How are they different? Give examples. Now children, autotrophic mode of nutrition is of 2 types, phototrophic and chemoautotrophic. Now photoautotrophic is when the plants are able to trap the sunlight and convert the sunlight into chemical energy, all right, and then manufacture their food. But whereas in case of chemoautotrophs, we have some bacteria like sulfur bacteria and purple bacteria. So these bacteria, the chemical reactions, the exothermic reactions that are happening in their body, those energy that is released during those exothermic reactions are utilized to manufacture the food. So in this way. Now the photosynthetic part of the plant is leaf mainly. Is there any relationship with the size of the leaf and the rate of photosynthesis? Well children, you would see that the leaves of a plant are of different sizes. If you've ever noticed the sunflower plant, then you would see that the bigger size leaves are at the bottom and the smaller leaves are at the top, and they are arranged in such a manner that they are fully exposed to the sunlight, because on the upper epidermis, just below the upper epidermis of the leaf, there are numerous cells which are carrying chloroplasts. So this is the answer. Now the 4th question is, in ancient times our Earth atmosphere was reducing type. After photosynthesis, it changed into oxidizing type. What would have happened after the process? Now children, what happened was, initially when our Earth was evolving, there was no oxygen, and therefore we had anaerobes. We had anaerobic bacteria. Now what happened was they have a structure which is called as mesosome. All right. So these are invaginations of the plasma membrane which have chlorophyll-like pigments. Now, so what happened was that this chlorophyll-like pigment then later on got enclosed into organelles called as chloroplast. All right. So, and then of course, slowly and slowly, the organisms moved from anaerobic respiration to aerobic respiration, where carbon dioxide was released, and then the oxygen. These organisms, they utilize the carbon dioxide to photosynthesize, and then oxygen was released, and as a result it became an oxidizing atmosphere. The raw materials of photosynthesis is carbon dioxide, water and sunlight. State the source from which they are obtained. All right, this question is the material for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide, water and sunlight. What are the source? Okay. Now source, the carbon dioxide we just studied, children. The source of carbon dioxide is air. Water is from the soil, and sunlight, of course, sunlight is trapped by the leaves, isn't it? By the chloroplast, the chlorophyll molecule is there, and that traps the light energy. All right. So this is the answer to the questions. Now we will go back to our PPT. All right. You just saw a video of the cropping patterns. We just saw a video on cropping patterns. Well, we saw that the cropping patterns are of the cropping patterns can be of three types: the mixed cropping, intercropping and crop rotation. Mixed cropping, it is growing two or more crops simultaneously in the same field. So these are those farmers which are economically not well off. So what do? They take the seeds of two or more crops and they sow it in the field. For example, it can be wheat or gram, wheat or mustard, groundnut, sunflower, etc. Now the advantage of mixed cropping, you must be thinking, oh, this is going to give a mixed produce. So what is the advantage of mixed cropping? Well, the advantage of mixed cropping is this reduces the risk even if one crop fails. If one crop fails, well, you get a produce from the other crop. So there is no entire loss to the farmer. Another pattern that is followed is intercropping. Intercropping is growing two or more crops simultaneously in the same field in alternate rows. So what is happening? That in alternate rows you are growing two or more crops. For example, maize, soya bean or millet and cowpea. The advantage is crops with different nutrient requirements are selected. This helps in better use of nutrients and prevents spreading of disease to all plants of the same crop. So manuring can be different. If you have to spray insecticide, pesticide to one lot of crop which is caught insects or disease, you don't have to spray it on the other lot of crop. So the advantage is, and you can harvest because they are in different rows, they can be harvested separately. Crop rotation is growing different crops in the same field in succession. So this is done that one after the other the crops are grown. There's, for example, growing leguminous crops after growing the growing cereal crops helps to increase soil fertility. The advantage is that if crop rotation is done properly, 2 or 3 crops can be grown in a year profitably. Okay. So now we are just seeing pictures of mixed cropping and intercropping. You see how in this all of them are being grown together, whereas in this, can you see there are different rows? This is intercropping. Now let's go to crop protection management. Crop protection management is also very important because you have come through a long phase. You have sown the seeds, they have grown into a plant, but you don't want these plants to get destroyed by insect pest or diseases. So the crops in the field are damaged by weeds, insect pests and diseases. Weeds are unwanted plants which grow in the fields. For example, xanthium, parthenium, cyprinus, rotundus, etc. Now, can you see this? This is xanthium and this is parthenium. Parthenium is also called as carrot grass. Effects. They compete with the crop for food, space and sunlight, and also use nutrients and reduce crop yield. So the weeds are, how would you define the weeds? Weeds are unwanted plants which grow in the field. And what is the effect? They compete with the crop for food, space and sunlight, and they also take away the nutrients from the soil which actually should have been for the crop plants, and therefore they reduce the crop yield. Insect pest. How do they damage the plant? They would damage the plant because they damage the root, stem and leaves. They suck cell sap, bore into stems and fruits, and they can reduce crop yield. Children, do you see that this larvae is getting into the stem, boring into the stem? Can you see that this larva is eating away the leaf and so on? The plants can also be affected by the diseases in plants are caused by pathogens like virus, bacteria, fungi, which reduces crop yield. Now, how can we protect our crop plants? We can protect our crop plants by spraying pesticides. Weeds, insect, pests and diseases can be controlled by chemicals called as weedicide, pesticide and fungicides, etc. They are sprayed on the crop plants or used for treating seeds and soil. Since these chemicals are poisonous, excessive use of these chemicals can cause environmental pollution. Most of the times these are chemicals are non-biodegradable, and therefore they cause biomagnification also because they enter the food chain and they affect the top carnivore, that is the human being, which is worst affected. The other methods are weeds can also be removed by cutting them down, proper seed bed preparation, timely sowing of crops, intercropping and crop rotation. Use of resistant varieties, summer ploughing in which fields are ploughed deeper in summers to ensure removal of weeds and pests. Now, storage of grains. So you've done with the yield. Now you have harvested your crop. Now the grains that are obtained should also be, the farmer should also be able to store them so that he gets economic returns for the grains. The factors responsible for damaging and loss of grains are the biotic factors like bacteria, fungi, insects and rodents. So the factors can be biotic or abiotic. What are biotic factors? Biotic factors includes bacteria, fungi, insects and rodents, whereas abiotic factors, it includes moisture and temperature in the place of storage. So what does it do to the grain? There is degradation in quality, loss in weight, poor germinability, discoloration of produce, leading to poor marketability. Now what happens, children, is that if the grains, after so much of effort, if the farmer is able to have a good produce but is not able to save them from the destroying by either biotic or abiotic factors, then what will happen? They suffer a great economic loss, which we don't want, which they don't want. So what is the prevention and control measures? That before storage, the grains are cleaned, then dried in the sunlight to remove moisture, and then storage places are fumigated to kill the pests. So if there's any pest, by fumigation, all the pests will die. So this is how the grains are stored. Now, children, we get our food from two sources. One is crop and the other is by livestock. All right. So let us see how these, how does animal husbandry and what is animal husbandry and how do we get food from our livestock and how we can improve the production efficiency. The animal husbandry is the scientific management of animal livestock. Now, what does it include? So, what is animal husbandry in simple terms? Animal husbandry in simple terms include aspects like feeding of the livestock, breeding of the livestock, and disease control. So, these are the three aspects is looked into when we are talking of animal husbandry of the livestock. So today we are going to discuss cattle farming, poultry farming, fish production and beekeeping. So we are going to look into these cattle farming, poultry farming, fish production and the beekeeping. All right. Now first let us go to cattle farming. Now cattle farming, the cattle husbandry is done for two purposes. That is, milk producing females are called as milch animals. The milk producing females are called as milch animals because we are doing cattle farming basically for two purposes. One is to get milk and the other is to have animals which can help you in the agricultural fields. So the females that produce milk are called as milch animals, and those which help us in labor in the agricultural field are called as draught animals. Now, India cattle belong to two different species. It is called as Bos indicus cows and Bos bubalis buffaloes. So, when we are looking at animal husbandry of cattle, then or cattle farming, what are the aspects that we need to pay attention to? One is milk production, animal requirements, food production and cattle diseases. So these are the different aspects that we need to pay attention to. Now let's see milk production. Let us see milk production. Milk production depends on the duration of lactation period. Milk production depends duration of the lactation period. The period of milk production after the birth of the calf. So what is lactation period? How would you define a lactation period? The lactation period is the period of milk production after the birth of the calf. Milk production can be increased by increasing the lactation period. So if you increase the lactation period, obviously the milk production will increase. Now there are some foreign breeds and local breeds. You should know the names of the foreign breeds and local breeds. These are important. So you have foreign breeds like Jersey cow and you have brown Swiss. And they have a long lactation period. So you need cows which have a long lactation period. And then you have local breeds. like Red Sindhi and Sahiwal, which are resistant to diseases. So you have foreign breeds which have a longer lactation period, and you have local breeds which are resistant to diseases. Now I think you understand that we need to go in for hybridization or crossbreeding programs, isn't it? Why? Because even though the foreign breeds, if they are brought to India, what will happen? They are not disease resistant to those pathogens or disease causing organisms which are present in India, because they are foreign breeds, they are exotic breeds. So by hybridization, what we'll do, or by crossbreeding, what will we do? We will take a foreign breed that has long lactation period and cross it with a local breed which is resistant to diseases. Then we will get a hybrid that has a longer lactation period and is also resistant to the diseases which are found in that locally in that area. So by the programs of crossbreeding and interbreeding, basically not interbreeding, crossbreeding, you would get hybrids which have a longer lactation period and also disease resistant. Now let's see, how should the animal shelter be? How should the animal shelter be? The proper cleaning and shelter facilities for cows and buffaloes are required for humane farming, for the health of the animals, and for production of clean milk as well. So, if you want that the cattle give high yield, then they should have proper animal shelter, and proper cleaning and shelter facilities should be provided to the cows and buffaloes. Why is it required? Because if the shelters are clean, then the pathogens will not attack the cattle. Now let's see what is the features for animal shelter. Cattle shelter should be clean and well ventilated with sloping floors for easy cleaning. So the floor should be sloping. Then animals require regular brushing to remove dirt and loss of hair. They should be sheltered under well ventilated roof sheds that protect them from rain, heat and cold. The floor of the cattle shed needs to be sloping so as to stay dry and to facilitate cleaning. Now let us see the food requirements. Now the food requirements of dairy animals are basically in two groups. One is the maintenance requirement and the other is milk producing requirements. So maintenance requirement, it is the food that is required to support the animal to live a healthy life. So the food that helps the animal to live a healthy life, these are called as maintenance requirement. And to improve the quality of the milk, that is milk producing requirement, which is a type of food required during the lactation period. Now the animal feed includes roughage, which is largely fiber, alright, and concentrates which are low in fiber and contain relatively high levels of proteins and other nutrients. Besides such nutritious food material, certain feed additives containing micronutrients promote the health and milk output of dairy animals. So, this is very important because additives containing micronutrients promote the health and milk output of dairy animals. That is why additives are also important in their food. Now let's see the cattle diseases. We don't want the cattle from suffering from diseases because this will bring down their yield of milk. But we should be aware of the diseases that attack the cattle. So cattle suffer from a number of diseases. The diseases, besides causing death, reduce milk production. Now, causes of the diseases. Cattle disease are caused by parasites, bacteria, and virus. External parasites cause skin diseases. Internal parasites like worms affect stomach and intestine, and flukes, they damage the liver. Vaccinations are given to protect from viral and bacterial diseases. So children, with this we will go for a short break.
Okay, madam.